Hey folks, Andy here, and I've got another screen capture video for you. This time I've been goofing around with Tabletop Simulator, and I ended up doing some new and different Squib things that I've never really done before. But yeah, so I thought I'd show them off. So I'm up to version 6.1. So really, the game itself has not changed since 6.0, but I'm putting this out as a release so that you can see the code, and I've made some changes to the components as well. But nothing that changes the game. First of all, in this version, woohoo, we have a README now. So now I'm keeping track of a changelog and everything, so I'll make that easier for people who are following along. The next thing I added was a rake, clean, and clobber. So this has nothing to do with Tabletop Simulator, although I ended up needing it at this stage because I found myself wanting it. And so what this is in rake, in the tool that comes with Ruby, you have the ability to clean out files that are temporary. So in this case with Squib, that is like your ping files that you're saving out and your PDF files and stuff that every time you run Squib gets overwritten. You can delete those. And what's nice about that is that as I was going through this particular one, I was changing what the format of a file was, like what the file, sorry, not the format, the file name. And so every time I would change the file name format and then run it, it would save to new files. Then I just get lots and lots of cruft that I didn't need. And so just deleting everything is what I needed. So that's what that line is all about. And you have to require rake clean to do that. Did a little bit of cleanup here. And then you notice here that I'm doing, it's very small, very subtle, but I added a dependency. So if you are new to Ruby or programming in general, this may be a little bit strange to you, or you won't realize how big of a deal this is. So what I'm doing is I'm creating what's called a dependency tree in my rake file, which means that if I want to run the task rake TTS, rake Tabletop Simulator, I need to first run the deck. And the reason for that is that I want to take everything in the build of the deck, and I want to take the output of those images, those output images, I want to use them again as inputs. And so I don't want to run this unless I've actually run the deck task first. And so in order to do that, I set up a dependency. So what this does is, say I run a whole bunch of these tasks at once, I get to Tabletop Simulator, Rake keeps track of which tasks I've run and which tasks I have not run. If I've run deck, it'll go ahead with Tabletop Simulator. If I have not, it will run deck first. So nice little dependency tree. This is a classic. This is kind of what make files and rake files were made for, because you can create this great little tree. We don't do a lot of this in Squib, but this is one situation where I found it to be useful. And then as you can see, all I do is I run tabletopsimulator.rb, and I'll show you that code in just a moment. Next, I added in a back. So on the cards, it's hard to remember what card is back to what. And if you print out on two sheets and you put them in sleeve, it's hard to remember. So I just put it on the card. Okay, small thing. Then what I did is, in the previous way of saving things, I would just save things out to just card 1, card 2, whatever, because that didn't matter. But now I want to save the cards out where the file is named according to what card number it is and whether it's front or back. And so every card in the game, 1 through 9, or really 1 through 7, has a card number, and then it has 2 faces. And in regular Squib, in the regular deck.rb, I view all of those as truly different cards. So I really have them, each face is a different Squib card. But in this case, I want to start grouping them. And so what I did is I said, okay, take all of the cards, the card name, and then zip it together with size. And so what that does is it goes goes down 2 arrays kind of in parallel, and it zips them together. And so I can now combine what the card number was and what the size was, and size being a string of either big or small, and then big creature, small creature, and then C is what the card number is, 1 through 7. So then I save those out. So therefore, the outputs are now creature 7, small, and then 06 is just kind of what number it is overall. So like Ugly Sweater Ghost, its back is Sprocket Snake. So if we go to the creature 7 big, there's Sprocket Snake. Okay, so that way we can kind of group things a little bit better. And the reason that I name the files is that I can pick them up in tabletopsimulator.rb. And here's what that looks like. Let me, so I'm in Atom, and I think it'll be easier to see this in Atom. So here's what it looks like. So what I did is I'm abusing what a deck is at this point. I'm not really creating a deck of cards. I'm creating a deck of sheets. This is a little bit more advanced than what Save Sheet does, and it's actually even a little bit more advanced than a feature that hasn't quite come out in Squib just yet. The next big feature in Squib is something called Sprues, which allow you to control the output. But what I want to do here is even a little bit more advanced than that. Maybe I can do this with Sprues later on, but it's not quite there, so I'm just going to do it my own way. Anyway, what I did here is I created a card, basically a 3x3 sheet, and I've got these here saying, this is 825 pixels times 3, so it's a 3x3 sheet. And then I said, okay, background color white, although that doesn't really matter. And then what I did is I said, go over all of the output files, and look up all of the output, and look at all the files that have creature, big, and then star. This is what's called globbing. So so dir, the dir method in Ruby will pick up all of the file names that are in this particular folder and this particular thing. So you could see why you can't just run this by itself. You have to run deck first to rebuild it, to rebuild cleanly. So that's why we have that set up in our rake task. Okay, convert all that to an array. Sort the array, so I want to sort it by all the bigs, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then iterate over those, and I want to keep track of which one I'm iterating on, and then put the file in. Notice here on line 8 I had to put in a ... That's because in my config.yaml I have set that the image directory is in the image folder, and so initially when I ran this, it would try to look up the files inside. I apologize for my notifications. I tried to pick up the files inside of the image folder and not the output folder, so I had to go up one directory. That's what ... is. But that's fine. And then we load the ping, and so that we put it on using a good old-fashioned row column kind of thing. So the x-coordinate is going to be 825 times I. We use mod, divide. Okay, so we're basically laying this all out in a grid. And so the outcome of this, and by the way, we're putting it in range 0. So the range 0 is going to be the front sheet. Or I guess, yeah, the front sheet. So range 0, here's what the front sheet looks like. So as you can see, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this is loading the 7 cards here. These two get pasted on before. So again, I'm using the output of output of my deck.rb to load it onto another sheet. Basically do the same thing for small. Yeah, I know I'm repeating myself. I copied and pasted. That's not the best programming practice, but hey, I'm only doing it once. And then down here, I'm putting the resource card on, and then the third resource card on the other side of the page, because on down here, I've got the metal fabric oil of the resource tracker card. And then there's nothing on the back of this, but then on the back of the tool card is actually the crane, is the final boss. And so that's how we're going to load that. Okay. Now, what Tabletop Simulator needs is all it really needs is a sheet, and it needs sheet of front and back to be able to load them. So yeah. So now I have what I need really, and so I can still go through the whole thing and do rake TTS and it will work. So I actually can show you what that looks like. Rake TTS, and so that will first build the it first is going to build the deck, because that's the first thing that should happen, and then it's going to build the Tabletop Simulator assets. Okay, so even though I said rake TTS, it runs the first one first. Okay, next let's head on over to Tabletop Simulator. So this is going to be something new. Actually, you know what? Let me stop the recording and we'll go from there. Okay, so here I am in Tabletop Simulator. I just booted this up, and let's get right into it. I'm going to build my prototype from scratch right now and show you how that works. So here is single player. I'm going to go single player, and I want to create a new one. Now, I believe I had one before, but maybe I'll just close this out. Maybe I'll just start a new one. So we can just keep this as our table, or you know what, we can actually change our table to something else. I believe that's under objects tables, and we can change it to another interesting table, maybe over to a rectangle table. Okay, so now we want to make our deck, and so for that we need to go to objects, components, and we're going to need a bunch of things. We're going to need a die, so let's grab a die, toss that out there, and we're going to need a bunch of cubes. So we're going to do a red square here. I don't know why they call it a square, because it's a cube. But anyway, we can actually get a bunch of different colors out of this, so we can actually change the tint. So we're going to need, I think, a couple of red cubes. So we do Control-C, Control-V. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 should be fine. And I believe we need 7 yellow cubes, so let's change the color tint here to yellow. Apply. And Control-C. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, there you go. I wish I could make these clear. Honestly, in the game, I recommend that you have clear cubes, because then you can see right through them and you can see what you're tracking. Unfortunately, we can't do that here, as far as I know, in Tabletop Simulator. Tabletopia, you get clear cubes. So come on, Tabletop Simulator, get with it. Okay. And then next we need to make our cards. This is what it's all about. So we go to Custom, go to Cards, go to Custom, and next we need to give it our tabletop assets. And hopefully, earlier this was like super slow on me, so hopefully this doesn't do this. Well, I have to edit this out. Da, 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 da. Come on, there you go. Okay. And Tabletop Simulator, Asset 0. So these are going to be our faces. And yes, we want to load it from local. If you want to playtest with a friend, you're going to have to find somewhere on the internet to host this. But for now, I'm just going to go with local. And then make sure you click unique backs, because every single card is going to have a unique back. It's not going to be like a standard deck where you have one face and then one back and then many faces. It's going to be many backs, many faces. Come on. And as you can see, we have Tabletop Simulator Asset 1. That's going to be our backs. Load from local. And then the width here is the number of cards. And so we did it 3 by 3. And then if you do 3 by 3, you don't generally need to change the number here, I don't think. But I'm just going to change it to 9. And then that's basically it. So you import it from there. And it's going to create the deck. It's going to be loading in the images. Boom. There you go. These are our cards. Now, there are a couple of things to note. For one thing, there are going to be a lot of times you're going to be looking at a card kind of up close. And if you press Alt when looking at Bolt Rats, when looking at a card like this, you want to be able to see it really well. And so this would be like equivalent to picking it up. So you actually want to make this quite a bit bigger. I found that to be handy. So let's make this nice and big. Fortunately, we did all of this in kind of a high resolution here, because we're making it for print. So now when we do now we can really see what's going on in this card. So that's great. Next, we need to get out. So we have Bolt Rat, we have all the creature, and then over here we have our resources. So just flip that over there, and then we can. Because this is going to be kind of I don't want to be picking up this card very much, I'm going to lock this one. This is a good one to lock. And then next I need to match the size of these cubes to the proper size of the board. And so I'm going to select all of these, unselect this. Try that again. Okay, well, I guess I'm shrinking the wrong cubes here, but that's fine, because I will be able to fix that. There we go. And let's actually delete these cubes for now, since I now have the correct size. These guys are also the correct size. Good. So I'll bring these guys over here. And then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Excellent. And next, let's make the die a little bit bigger. Okay. And this is kind of fun. So when you roll the die, it actually rolls the die, which is kind of cool. One thing that I thought was kind of lame is that the die doesn't exactly bounce very much. So I found that actually making it kind of bouncy made for a much more exciting thing. So it's between 0 and 1. So make the die a little bit more bouncy, and yeah, that way it'll kind of roll a little bit. It'll act a little bit more like a die. Anyway, I found that more exciting. Yeah, I rolled a crit. So back to here are the tools. We can lock that in place. And now we can set up our game. Now, there are a couple of caveats here about using Tabletop Simulator that I found. So there are a couple of caveats. So for one thing, I have the cards here, and you'll notice that it still views them as front and back. And so if I flip this over to like major ductwork, from minor ductwork to major ductwork, and I try to drop it on, it won't add it to the deck. But if I flip it back, it will add it. And that is kind of annoying because in the rules of our game, if we want to be able to do that. And as far as I can tell, you can't do that maybe without going to the scripting level, and I'm not going to do any scripting for Tabletop Simulator. I've got enough scripting in my life. Thank you very much. But all you have to do for that is to just keep track of what you have defeated and not defeated. Just to get into setting up the game, you can drop. So just keep track of the shadow, and of course you can kind of zoom in. And so the game is going to. You start with 4, 3, 1. So you start with 4 metal, 4 fabric, 1 oil, and you start at 0 attack and 10 hit points. And oh yes, and then of course we have to track the time left. So we have to we can actually make the time left be like purple. So now the round timer, which is new in 6.0, but I really like it. And so there you go. And then when we play the game, we can draw from the deck like this. We can actually probably keep the deck up here. Draw from the deck like this, boom, and like this. Oh yes, and of course, more importantly, you have to shuffle. So you can, if you hover over it and press R, shuffle, 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 shuffle. I highly recommend keeping your eyes closed while you shuffle, just because I have all this confirmation bias of like the one that I want, and I'll keep pressing R until I don't get what I want. So just like close your eyes and press it, and then like commit to it. So okay, so we've started with the minor ductwork, socket wrench puppy, bolt rats, ugly sweater ghost. We're a little bit close to the table right now, so maybe we'll take all this and like move it over here. This is something that's really nice about that you can't do as nearly as easily in real life, is you could just get a bunch of things at once. And then this guy. And then here we are. I find that when I'm playtesting on this, I like to kind of set up my angle and then kind of strafe. So use the WASD to strafe from here. And really from there we can actually play it. I think the next video I'm going to do is actually to show you the rules of the game. But there you go. That's how you get the stuff into Tabletop Simulator. I found it to be relatively easy. It all comes down to stitching together the right sheets and outputting it from Squib. Now, one thing I don't know is if Squib if making an update to the file automatically loads it back into this, if I have to do this setup every time I do playtesting. I don't know that yet. There are a bunch of other things that I'll check. So maybe I'll come back with an updated version of this video later. But there you go. That's how you get things into Tabletop Simulator. It's pretty darn easy. So have a good one.